Hello and welcome to the first episode of the podcast, Top 120 Movies of 2018. I know that makes it sound like there was 120 good films from last year that I'd recommend, but I saw a lot of films and I kind of just wanted a catchy title. This is more of the worst to best of all the films that I saw in 2018. So the films had to have actually been released in 2018 in the country that they were produced in. So, for example, Paddington 2, although a lot of people consider that a 2018 film, it was made and released in the UK in 2017, so that's more of a 2017 film. Plus, I didn't even think it was that good. There are no straight-to-DVD movies, no TV movies, no short films, or obviously TV shows. I have separate lists for those, which you can find on my Letterboxd account or my IMDb account, which I'll link in the description below. This is pretty much unscripted for the most part. I have a few notes for each of the films that I've seen, but I wrote a lot of them when they were drunk, so they're probably just taking a piss. The films on the list are in as strong as an order as I could possibly make them. Some of them have moved around a lot, some of them will move around probably in the future. I've put them into categories from 1 to 10, the rating I gave them. Just to give a little context, 1 means the film meant pretty much nothing to me. I don't give ones away like that. It's kind of just, it has to be really, really bad. Like there's nothing slightly good about them. 2 is just awful. 3 is shit. 4 is bad. 5's average. 6 is good. 7's great. 8's brilliant. 9 is outstanding. And 10 is pretty much perfect. I rarely ever give 10s away. I didn't give any in 2017. The last time I gave a 10 out of 10 was 2016, so we'll just see if I gave any films a 10 out of 10 from last year. Some of the movies I'll talk about a lot more than others. This will be because I either don't care about them if I don't talk about them much, or I've just kind of forgotten about them, whether it's because they're bad, forgettable, or just because I saw them at the beginning of the year or something. So I have a list of the best films from the year that I haven't seen, because I know a lot of people might be waiting to see if their favourite film's on the list, so I've tried to include all of them as best as I can. I've based this on IMDb ratings, so if it has a 7 or more on IMDb, then it counts as the best movie that I haven't seen. I know IMDb doesn't mean everything, but it's the best I could do. So there was 30 films, and starting from 7.0 and upwards, we have Crazy Rich Asians, Outlaw King, Den of Thieves, Ben is Back, Boy Erased, The Other Side of the Wind, Todos lo saben, also known as Everybody Knows, At Eternity's Gate, Tully, Wildlife, The Christmas Chronicles, Papillon, The Hate You Give, Can You Ever Forgive Me, Mirai, Border, Girl, Lean on Pete, The Mule, To All the Boys I've Loved Before, The Wife, I Can Only Imagine, Utoya, July 22nd, The Rider, Never Look Away, Instant Family, Stan and Ollie, Pajaros de Verano, also known as Birds of Passage, I probably completely butchered that name, The Wild Pear Tree, and Capernaum. Some of them I just didn't really care for, I didn't want to see, but others aren't available to watch in my country, so I couldn't really watch them. So the list is obviously my opinion, so I won't just put Roma at the top just because it was probably the most well-made film of the year, and I won't put something like Black Panther at the top just because it was the most popular film. So these are all completely my subjective views, but I will take into consideration how well made a film was, so I won't just shit on something if it was like objectively well made. I probably wouldn't give it less than a 5 out of 10, and I also won't give something that's really poorly made more than a 5 out of 10, just because I might have found some ironic enjoyment out of it. So let's start with number 120, the 1s out of 10s, the bottom tier. At number 120 we have Slender Man. This is one of the worst movies I've seen from any year. It was, I think, 6 years late because the whole Slender Man trend, the game and the myth or whatever it was in 2012, I believe. So I don't know why they released it now. Pretty much everything was bad about it. It was really dull, boring. The cinematography was really bland. Everything was just grey. The dialogue was bad. I remember the opening scene, 2 girls they were talking about like being emo or something, and they were trying to make it trendy. I can't really remember. Number 119 is Downriver. There's a bit of a backstory to this movie. So I watched, a couple of months ago, I watched Angel Heart and Jacob's Ladder, and then I found out that there was a short film based on both of them, and it was directed by someone called Alexander Ray Pimentel. So I tried finding that, but I couldn't. And then later on I was watching Fear and Desire, which was the first Stanley Kubrick film, and then I found out that that was being remade in 2018 by Alexander Ray Pimentel. And he's not like a well-known guy. I think this was his first feature-length film, so I felt bad for putting it this low on the list because it was so low budget. It should really be at the bottom, but because it was so low budget and Slender Man had slightly bigger budget, I decided to not put it right at the bottom. This was just a simple war movie. It was pretty much exactly the same as Fear and Desire, but worse. I don't think the movie would have been good even with a bigger budget. There was a scene in it where the scene was in slow motion, but instead of using a slow motion camera or anything, the actors moved in slow motion, and it was really noticeable. Number 118 is A Wrinkle in Time. This is a pretty obvious one. I think this is at the bottom of a lot of people's lists. It's the worst Disney film I've ever seen, and I've seen quite a lot of them. It had really bad acting, really bad cinematography. Their framing wasn't even done properly. Like, there was moments where people's heads were cut out of frame on close-ups and stuff like that. Oprah played a giant, which was weird to see. She, I think it was Your Movie Sucks, pointed out that she wasn't even looking at the other characters properly. The ending was shit as well. I'll warn everyone if I'm going to spoil a film beforehand, and I'm going to spoil this one. So at the end, the whole plot was them basically looking for Chris Pine. He was lost in space and time or something, and then they found him at the end, and he returned home to his wife, and the first thing he said to her was, "Sorry, I'm late," instead of like crying and hugging her. It's so unrealistic. Number 117 is Escape Plan 2 Hades. I didn't even like the first film in this series. I think they're planning on making a third one, but it's not going to happen. I didn't understand what was going on most of the time. The action scenes were really bad. Like, it wasn't like shaky cam and choppy editing, it was just like really weirdly choreographed. Number 116 is Mile 22. The only reason I watched this was because Iko Urais is in it, and he's one of the best martial artists working today, and I've seen every film that he's in, so I decided to watch this one. It was his first main role in Hollywood, I believe, in a Hollywood film. I know he had a cameo in Star Wars Force Awakens, but he didn't even have a line. They completely wasted him. In his fight scenes you could see that he was doing cool stuff, but it was so choppy and poorly edited that you couldn't see what was going on most of the time. The only reason this isn't lower is because the ending scene made me laugh. I can't remember exactly what happened in it, but spoilers, it was meant to be a twist where Iko's character was on a plane with Maggie from The Walking Dead, and then it was revealed somehow that he was like the bad guy all along, and they tried to set it up for a sequel, and she screamed, and it was really unintentionally funny. Number 115 is Robin Hood. I don't have much to say about this. I don't know why. I don't know why they made this movie. Everything was bad. I don't know if they did it on purpose, but it was obviously set in medieval times, but some of the characters were wearing what looked like modern clothing, like jackets and stuff like that. They tried to set up a sequel to this film as well, with, spoilers, Jamie Dornan's character being the villain in the next film, but no one saw this one, so they're definitely not getting a sequel. Jamie Dornan's had a pretty bad career compared to Dakota Johnson since the 50 Shades trilogy ended. She was in 2 really great movies this year, which I'll get to, and I believe this was the only film he was in, so... Number 114 is Day of the Dead Bloodline. I don't have much to say about this one. It was a remake of the original Day of the Dead, which is a great movie. For some reason, a lot of George A. Romero's Dead movies got remade. Obviously, there's a Dawn of the Dead one. Night of the Living Dead got remade like twice. This movie's been remade twice. It was just a zombie movie. It didn't do anything different. Number 113 is The Nun. This wasn't scary. I thought it would at least be scary based on the marketing and stuff. They had to remove one of their trailers from YouTube because it was so scary. But the movie was just really boring and nothing happened. Okay, we're now in the 2 out of 10s section. These are still really bad movies. I can't really say much positive about them, but I guess they're better than the 1s out of 10s. So at number 112 we have The Nutcracker and the Four Realms. It was I saw this one more recently and I still can't remember much of what happened in it. It was really bad special effects. I'm trying to remember what the actual plot was. She went into some other realm, kind of like Narnia, and then she met with the Nutcracker and Keira Knightley. But I can't even remember the actual conflict of the story. There was I can't remember who the villain was. Was it Keira Knightley? I think Keira Knightley might have been the villain. I can't remember. She was bad in this, and I usually like her. Number 111 is Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle. I thought this movie would be okay. It was marketed as the edgy, dark version of Jungle Book. I know it's not a remake of Jungle Book, but it's more of an adaptation of the original novel. The CGI was bad, the voice acting was bad, and it was Andy Serkis who was behind it all. He directed it. He'd done one other film before, that Breathe, that came out in 2017. I never saw it. I heard it was good though, so maybe he can make good movies, but this definitely wasn't one of them. Number 110 is Insidious: The Last Key. This was another boring, non-scary horror movie. I don't like any of the Insidious movies, so the fact that this is the worst one, in my opinion, kind of says something. Number 109 is The Grinch, another Illumination Entertainment movie. This movie, just like all the other Illumination movies, has such bad character designs and animation. Like, they made the Grinch all bright and colourful, even though that's like the opposite to his personality. And they definitely didn't do it on purpose. That's just the way they designed him. I don't know why. This is probably my second least favourite Illumination movie. It's still not as bad as Minions, but I can't say anything positive about it. Number 108 is The Meg. I expected this to be ironically funny, but it wasn't, which is sad. All the characters were annoying and stupid. Jason Statham fighting a shark has potential to be something great, but they didn't do anything with it. Paige Kennedy was in this movie. He was a Vine star, but he was actually an actor before that, which I didn't realise. And it looked like he was added in post-production. I haven't looked it up, so I don't know if I can confirm this, but every scene he's in, it looks like he's standing in front of a green screen, separate to everyone else, and he's like the comic relief character, and all of his lines are separate to everyone else's. It looks like he's just having input into the conversation. They've just added him in after. If you watch the film, you'll notice it. It's weird. Number 107 is Benji. This is a sequel / reboot remake of those old Disney movies where they just film a dog running around doing cute stuff. That's basically what this film was. I don't really remember anything else about it. Kids might like it. It's one of those harmless kids movies. Number 106 is Mary, Queen of Scots. I knew this was going to be a very Oscar bait movie, and it got nominated for something, I think costume design, so fair play, but it was so boring and so overdramatic. Like, it wasn't even realistic to its time period. Like, there was a character talking about how he wanted to be a girl, and the Saoirse Ronan's character and all of her friends accepted him like straight away. They didn't question it at all. And I don't know if that would have happened back then. It was all a build up to Margot Robbie and Saoirse Ronan's characters meeting at the end, which we see in the trailer, and it was just a build up to nothing. Like, it was poor acting. They were just talking and crying and shouting in each other's faces, and that was it. Number 105 is Sherlock Gnomes. The fact that this isn't the worst animated movie of the year says something about Illumination Entertainment. All I've written in the notes for this one is it's called Sherlock Gnomes because it's a parody of Sherlock Holmes. And all of the IMDb pictures, if you go on, I'm not sure if it's still like that, but if you go on the page on IMDb for Sherlock Gnomes and look at the images section, they're all just screenshots of every frame that Mankini was in the trailer for. So there's like 100 different pictures of just Mankini. Number 104 is 50 Shades Freed. This was better than 50 Shades Darker, but not as good as the first one. They're all shit, so it's not like an achievement, but All I've written in the notes for this one is very funny, great comedic performances, and twists and turns all round, which doesn't help me at all here. I remember, spoilers, Anastasia Steele, she was getting like kidnapped or something, and then there was a weird action scene and she shot him, and then the film ended. That's all I can remember, really. Number 103 is Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation. It's a bit of a long name for a kids animated movie. I can't really remember much about this either. They were on a boat and then a big giant thing attacked them. It was just one of the many shitty kids movies that just kind of blended together from last year. Number 102 is Skyscraper. This movie was quite funny because I had a bit of alcohol before watching it. Everything was bad aside from that. It was funny how The Rock thought he was representing disabled people just because his character had one leg in the film. The leg didn't hold him back. It wasn't used. It was used as an obstacle, like, I don't know, maybe once or twice, but the rest of the film he was just like jumping 100 feet into the air, running, sprinting, just doing everything. Maybe that's the point, I guess, but I doubt they really thought about it. It was probably just added into the script last minute. So we are now in the 3 out of 10s category. These are kind of just that was shit, just a casual, like, shit movie. Number 101, we have Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween. That's a pretty awful name for a sub-name. It was, the only positive thing that I've written down about this is that it was really short, and it had weird pacing, so it kind of felt short, I guess, so it ended quickly. There's bad dialogue, annoying characters. It's kind of exactly what you'd expect from the film, really. Now we're in the top 100, the big leagues. We have Pacific Rim Uprising. I didn't even like the first Pacific Rim. I know a lot of people did, but I just don't like giant monster movies, and I don't like giant robot movies, and these films are both of those. This one was even worse so, because it was just really poorly lit, and it had none of the style of the other one. This just felt like another Transformers movie. Speaking of Transformers movies, at number 99 we have Bumblebee. People liked this movie for some reason. I didn't even think it was the best Transformers movie. I think people just liked it because it was Michael Bay. It wasn't Michael Bay, sorry. And people hate him, obviously. It wasn't even original. It was basically just Iron Giant, a live-action Iron Giant, but with a girl. Okay, at number 98, we have Johnny English Strikes Again. I actually quite like the first two. I wouldn't say they're good. They're just kind of fine. But this one was really bad. Rowan Atkinson, I don't like to say this, but he's very old, and he looks it in the film, and they never really utilise that into the comedy. They never point out that he looks really old. A lot of the jokes belonged in like the early 2000s. The only funny one I remember was he was using VR, and he was just walking around town having fights with like the bus driver and stuff like that, but it wasn't that funny. But that's the only positive thing I can really think of. At number 97 we have Gotti. All I've written in the notes for this is John Travolta has a funny face, because I was just looking at the poster, obviously, and it's just him in front of a black background, and he's in black and white, wearing a black and white suit, and he's just staring deadpan into the camera, and he's all wrinkly, and it just says Gotti below his head. This movie wasn't as bad as everyone said it was. It doesn't deserve a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was just boring. It was nothing special. Number 96 we have Lizzie. This was the first film on the list that I watched because I thought it might actually be good, but it wasn't. It was very boring. The cinematography looked so plain, and the colour palette was boring. The acting wasn't good. Chloe Sevigny was alright, but Kristen Stewart she felt like she was going back to her Twilight days of just showing no emotion. Number 95 is The House with a Clock in Its Walls. This made me laugh a couple times, but that's the only positive thing I've written about this one as well. I feel like I'm too lenient giving 3 out of 10s to something just because it made me laugh a couple times. The plot was shit. I can't even remember what happened. It didn't make too much sense. I think it should have taken itself less seriously. Eli Roth, he doesn't usually make kids' films. I think this is the first kids' film he's actually made, and it doesn't really work. Number 94 is The Cloverfield Paradox. I really like the first two. This one didn't make any sense, but whenever it didn't, they just use the excuse that it's a paradox to just explain things away. No one knew this was coming out, and they did that on purpose because obviously the producers knew the film was going to be bad, so they just they didn't spend any money on marketing, they just released it. The last shot was really weird as well, spoilers. The Cloverfield monster from the first movie, he like showed up and jumped in the sky, and he was like 10 times the size of the one from the first one, and I don't know why they did that. So I kind of, in my head, just removed that scene from canon. And like the scene at the end of the Evil Dead remake, where Ash looks into the camera and says groovy, like that's just a random scene that they added in, but it's not canon, so I kind of think the same thing for this film. Number 93 is The First Purge. This was kind of ironically funny. The acting was really bad, and they tried to like stick in some political messages in it for some reason. I hate it when they do that in really bad movies. The action, there was one decent action scene in it, in like a stairwell, but that's about it really. Number 92. Oh, we're in the 4 out of 10s now, so these are just the bad movies. They're not awful, they're not like offensive, they're just bad. 92 is Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. I was one of the few people that actually liked the first one. I didn't think it was great, I just thought it was good. I knew from the trailer that this one wasn't going to be good, but I still watched it. There was like 3 plots in one, and it didn't work at all. It was too overcomplicated. All of the characters are boring. I think one of them died at the end. Spoilers, sorry. I think one of them died. I can't remember. Something bad happened to one of the characters, but I just didn't care. Yeah, that's all I can say really. Number 91 is Tomb Raider. I don't know why I had any hopes for this movie. The trailer looked okay, but every video game movie's bad, so I don't know what I expected. This was still better than the Angelina Jolie films, because those are really, really bad. The action was pretty bad in this film, the acting was bad. Alicia Vikander looks the part, but I don't know, her line delivery is really weird. Number 90 is Venom. This wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Sometimes it was ironically funny, which is why it's not lower down. I've written that this is the second best Venom movie of the year, which we'll get to later. Because there are 2 movies that came out where Tom Hardy, or someone that looks like Tom Hardy, gets controlled by something that talks to them in their heads that no one else can hear. It's really weird, and this was the shit version of that film. And the only other thing I've written in the notes is the lyrics to the Eminem Venom song, and that was actually worse than the film itself. I haven't really spoken about the film yet. The visuals were awful, visual effects were really bad, the acting was pretty bad, the pacing was bad. Tom Hardy said that they removed half the film and they were his favourite parts, but I watched one of the scenes that they removed online and it was still bad. It was just him talking to Venom in a cab, and it was meant to be like a comedic scene because the taxi driver was like, "Oh, who's he talking to?" But it just weren't funny. Number 89 is Peter Rabbit. I'm not too familiar with the original Peter Rabbit novels or whatever they are. People say that this film is offensive to those, but I don't know, it wasn't awful. It was just kind of dull. There was a couple of good jokes in it. This is actually the second movie in the James Corden animated trilogy. The first being Emoji Movie, and this is better than that, luckily. I don't know why he gets cast in so many animated movies. His voice is the most annoying part about him, so I don't know why people would want to hear that as the main character in a film. Yeah, I don't know why he's cast. I can't really stand him in anything. So I like Donald Gleason. He gives the film points, but James Corden brings it down a lot. Number 88 is Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is my least favourite MCU movie. As a fan of the MCU, I did not like this movie. I don't like all of the movies, obviously. If there's a bad movie in the series, then I won't like it, but I do like a few of them. This movie did nothing for the large scale of the MCU. It was pretty much pointless. It was meant to be a comedy, but there was one joke that made me laugh, where she was talking about how, what's her name? The Wasp. It's in the title of the film. The Wasp was talking about how she used to hide in a cupboard during hide and seek every time she'd play as a kid, and then Paul Rudd said, "You don't know how hide and seek works, do you?" And then it made me like exhale out of my nose. That was that was it really. This movie kind of didn't really have a third act. It just ended, and I was genuinely shocked when it ended because I thought there was still like half an hour left, because it didn't wrap up or anything. There was no real villain in this movie. There was just kind of goons, and then there was that ghost woman or whatever her name was. I didn't really understand her character that much. Okay, number 87 is The Equalizer 2. I like the first movie, and somehow the action scenes in this movie were worse than the first one. I don't know how they did that. I think Denzel Washington might be a little bit too old, maybe. I don't know. This movie was pretty boring. The final action scene was really bad, where it was him and, spoilers, Oberyn Martell from Game of Thrones. They were fighting in his tower, and then at the end he just chucks him off, and it's really bad. Okay, number 86 is Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. This was better than I thought it would be. Still not good. There was a couple of good scenes. Spoilers, big spoiler. There was a scene where all the dinosaurs died, and it was quite well directed. I liked how they didn't, pretend like all those dinosaurs were a character before they killed them off. Like to try and emotionally manipulate us. They just the fact that they were dinosaurs and they all died is enough. They didn't need to make, if it was like the T-Rex from the original film or something who they killed off, then that would have been a bit. I like the final scene, again spoilers, with Jeff Goldblum's character. He wasn't in the film much, but hopefully he'll be in the next one, which they are making in 2021. He was basically narrating over like a little montage of all the dinosaurs having now been released upon the world, so it's now actually Jurassic World. But yeah, aside from those two scenes, everything else kind of just sucked. Number 85 is The Predator. I think this film had a bit of potential behind it, because Shane Black, who is a good director, was the director of this film, but it was really, really badly edited, and I think that brought the film down a lot. There was a couple of funny moments in this bit that could have been funnier if they weren't edited so weirdly. Like, some of the acting was good. I liked, is it Key? Something Key? The Key and Peele, the one that's not Jordan Peele. He was funny in this movie, and there was a bit where, spoilers, he was like dying, and his friend, he was like sitting next to a tree, and then his friend was up, like speared to the opposite tree, and then they just like put each other out of each other's misery, and it was kind of funny. So there were scenes like that which had potential, but it was just ruined by bad editing. Oh, and the CGI was really bad. Like, even when it wasn't CGI, even when it was just the Predator in a suit, the man in the suit, you could tell that it was a man in a suit, especially when he was running after the bus. That was really bad. And those fucking Predator dogs, they looked shit. Okay, we're now in the 5 out of 10s, which is the average tier. At number 84, we have Maze Runner: The Death Cure. I quite liked the first one. Second one was pretty bad. This one was a bit better than the second one. It was just too overcomplicated. The special effects were bad. It didn't really make too much sense. I'm guessing if you read the book, it might make sense. But I kind of enjoyed some moments in it. I like some of the characters, and they actually, I'm not going to say who, because I've spoiled a lot of films in this list, so people will just be skipping over the video. But they actually had the balls to kill some of the characters off, which I appreciated. Number 83, we have Early Man. This was my least favourite out of the Aardman Animations movies, and I quite like their films. It was a very weird premise. It was like cavemen inventing football, but it wasn't like, it was just genuine football. It wasn't like some kind of caveman version of football. They just had a whole stadium and they were just playing football with goals and everything. It was weird. The animation was good, as always in Aardman Animations films. It wasn't really funny. The voice acting was okay. Eddie Redmayne was okay. Don't really have much else to say. Number 82 is Death Wish. This movie was pretty boring until Bruce Willis killed people, and whenever he killed people it was quite, exciting, but aside from that it was just boring. Number 81 is Smallfoot. This is the third and hopefully final movie in the James Corden animation trilogy. The voice acting was really bad in this film, not just from James Corden, but him especially. He wasn't the main character this time, which is good. The character design was really bland. All of the characters looked the same, like I genuinely couldn't distinguish some of the characters. But it's one of the harmless kids movies, kind of like Benji. So it's kids will like it, I'm sure. Number 80 is White Boy Rick. I kind of expected a Martin Scorsese-ish kind of movie when I saw the trailer, but it was just really plain. It was very boring. There was some good acting. I liked the kid who played White Boy Rick. I don't think he'd been in anything before, or nothing big at least. Matthew McConaughey was good, but it was nothing special, nothing unique about it. It was just very plain. Number 79 is The Girl in the Spider's Web. This is meant to be a sequel to the Fincher movie, but it's not David Fincher anymore, and it's not what's her name? I've fucking forgotten her name. The woman who there was Nomi Rapace, or however you pronounce her name. She was in the original, and then the remake had Rooney Mara. Rooney Mara was replaced by what is her name? Claire Foy, and she did an okay job, but it just didn't feel like it was a sequel to the other one. It felt more like a reboot. The last 20 minutes, the whole action scene at the end was pretty decent. The acting was good, but it was just boring. It's another one of the boring films. Oh, and there was a bit where, right at the end, spoilers, the main villain woman, she crashed the car. No, someone crashed the car, but it didn't really make sense. They were driving, getting away. There was two villains left, the driver and her, and then he just randomly crashed the car. And I don't know if I missed something, but like, I didn't see anything that made him crash the car. He just crashed it, and then he died. I didn't understand that bit. Okay, number 78 is Teen Titans Go to the Movies. This was better than I thought it would be. I've never seen any episode of Teen Titans or Teen Titans Go. I know Teen Titans Go is like offensive to the name of the original, but this movie was kind of funny. It had a lot of fourth wall breaks, which got too much at some point. It was trying to be like Deadpool, obviously. I'm sure kids. I've written kids will like it. Kids are stupid, but it's not. It's not that bad. It's fine. Kids will like it. Okay, number 77 is Rampage. This was funny. It was actually funny. I'm surprised. Every actor in it just played themselves. The Rock played himself. Negan literally just, what's his name? Jeffrey Dean Morgan literally just played Negan. The action scenes were really boring because it was PG-13, and Rampage, the game, which I loved as a kid, was not PG. It was literally, the whole thing is about giant monsters eating people, and you just have to eat as many as you can. But yeah, this film would have been better R-rated, but I know they're obviously never going to do that. And there was no references to the actual game aside from the giant monsters' names, really. That's about it. Okay, number 76 is Aquaman. This this movie definitely deserves to be lower on the list, but it was really funny. I didn't understand what was going on. There was like 40 different characters in the film. There was so many actors in it, big name actors, and I still couldn't follow along. Scenes kind of just begun and ended without me even realising. Like characters would just be talking, and then an action scene would start, and then it would just end, and then characters would talk, and then an action scene would start. It was so weird. Every single aspect of the film looked fake. Even when characters were just standing in a set, it still looked like green screen. I don't know if everything in this film was green screened, or they just tried to make the stuff that wasn't green screen look green screen to make them to kind of match with the green screen scenes. I know that sounds confusing, but to make the shit bits look less shit, I think they made it all look shit, if you get what I mean. It was very funny though. I can't say anything positive apart from that. It was just so funny. Okay, there was I like Jason Momoa. He's good. He has that presence. Like when in the opening action scene after he like kills people, he's just very cocky and it works. I think he's the only genuinely positive part about the film. Number 75 is Unfriended Dark Web. This is another film that should be lower, but it was very funny. I preferred this one way more than the first one, because the first one I didn't like the supernatural aspect, because they could just do anything with the script. They could just do whatever they want. With this one, it was an actual real killer, and that made it more stupid and funny, because they could have easily somehow got out of it. The ending, I'm going to spoil it. I can't remember. I'm going to try and get it as right as I can, but there was only one guy left. The killer had killed all the other people in the call, and then he was on the computer and he was watching the countdown to his death. But like, since it's not supernatural, he could have just avoided it somehow. He was standing in the middle of the road on his bike, and he didn't try and run when he saw the countdown. He just stood there, and then a van came and hit him. He could have avoided that anyway. He could have just gone into a building or something. He could have gone to the police. Oh no, the police. Okay, the police were gonna. If he called the police, the killer was gonna kill his girlfriend or something. But there was so many ways they could have got out of it. Number 74 is Ocean's 8. This is another gender swap reboots. I think they're doing What Men Want in 2019. I think it might already be out by the time I make this video. But this was better than Ghostbusters reboot. This wasn't like, it didn't force the whole we're women shit on you like Ghostbusters did. It was just a reboot with women. So I appreciated that. But it was still pretty pointless. It was just a worse version of the first movie, really, and a much smaller scale version. And I also like the fact that it wasn't actually a reboot. It's just a spin-off with George Clooney's sister. The performances were okay. The heist scenes are actually interesting. That's about it, really. It's just okay. Okay, so number 73 is Ghost Stories. I know a lot of people like this one. I thought the cinematography was really good, the acting was really good, but the script was very weak. It was very generic, and the ending was awful. Like, okay, I'll spoil it. I kind of have to with this one. So it basically had the Wizard of Oz ending, where the whole thing was just his little coma dream, and he woke up and like the people working in the hospital were the people in his dream. I think that's what it was anyway. Maybe I didn't look into it enough. Maybe there was more to it. But this movie definitely thought it was way more clever than it actually was. But it was well directed and well shot and well acted, so I'll give it that. Number 72 is Batman Ninja. It's a cool premise, just Batman being transported into anime. It was very, very good animation, most of the time anyway. But it was just the writing was pretty bad. It was just random shit happened, and I can't really remember much about it. It was just things happening, but it was cool. I'm sure if you like random anime stuff, then you'll like this. Number 71 is Ralph Breaks the Internet. This was another one that was better than I thought it would be. Still wasn't good. The jokes were kind of cringy, but it wasn't like Emoji Movie level. There's a couple of original moments. I like the bit where Ralph goes into the comments section and sees like all the comments about him, but the comments themselves were really realistic, and were like, because realistically people in the comments would be calling him like retarded and stuff like that, but obviously it's a kids film, so they couldn't put stuff like that. Number 70 is The Festival. This was a very British movie. It's made by the guy who did the In-Betweeners movie. What's his name? Ian Morris or Ian Morris. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It was trying way too hard to be very crude at some points, like In-Betweeners was. It worked well in In-Betweeners, obviously. I love that show, but this movie it was trying a bit too hard. But the tone was pretty consistent most of the time. There was some funny performances in it. I like Jermaine Clement in it. He's from Flight of the Conchords. He's very funny, and he was good in this movie. And Simon from In-Betweeners was okay as well. Number 69 is Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. This was a lot better than I thought it would be. I hated the first movie. The first movie was just kind of really like, not pretentious, but it was kind of like narcissistic. Like, it just got big name actors, and then the director was just like, I'll just film you having fun with each other. And they knew people would love it, because it's just big name actors having fun, and it was really poorly shot. Okay, I'm talking too much about the first one. This one was a lot better, still not good. I think it would have worked better as just a prequel, because it was a prequel and a sequel, and I don't know, it felt pointless, the sequel parts. I think the prequel parts were actually good. Cher shouldn't have been in this movie. I don't know why she was in this. It's because she's a big name actor. Some of the acting was bad, but overall it was a pretty harmless movie. Number 68 is Black Panther. So this might be controversial to put it this low, but I've seen a lot of movies, so 68 is still not too low. It's nearly halfway. The CGI was so fucking bad, like some of the worst I've seen from something with this big of a budget. Ralph the Movie Maker pointed out that they probably took all of the visual effects team from this film and moved them to Avengers Infinity War, so that might be the case. Some of the acting was pretty shit. I didn't like who didn't I like? The Letitia Wright, that's it. The woman who played Black Panther's sister. She wasn't that bad, actually. It was more of her character was annoying. She was kind of like the meme person, because she was like a teenager, and she quoted that "what are those" meme, and I think that actually made the film lose points for me. I liked both of the villains. I liked Michael B. Jordan and Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis was very funny in this movie. He was clearly having fun with the role, and Michael B. Jordan was too. But they killed off... oh, fuck, spoilers. They killed off Andy Serkis way too quickly. I liked all of the characters in this movie more when they were in Infinity War. I thought they were quite boring. The dialogue was pretty bad in this movie as well. Like, the comedic moments, you know, that in every Marvel movie they have like the funny line in the trailer, and the funny line from this movie was just Black Panther going, I never these, or whatever he says, and that wasn't funny. Okay, so I guess the rest of this list is just movies that I thought were better than Black Panther, and Black Panther was nominated for Best Picture, so... Okay, not all of these are actually better movies, especially not the next one coming up, because it's really poorly made, but I just thought it was ironically funny, and that is number 67, The Strangers Pray at Night. I think the first movie's quite boring. I like the villains in it, they're kind of creepy. And this one was just a funnier version, really. The cinematography was actually good in this movie. I was surprised. There was a scene in a pool that was really well shot and like really colourful, and it was kind of morbid, and I actually really liked that scene, and I was surprised that I actually liked a scene in a movie like this, in a slasher sequel. And also, okay, I'm going to spoil this bit, they actually killed off the three villains, the strangers, because I just thought they'd keep them alive again like they did at the end of the first one, and then they'd get another sequel, but they actually killed them off and ended the series, which is good. Number 66 is Sicario, Day of the Soldado. This was actually surprisingly good. It wasn't as good as the first one, but since this Denis Villeneuve, or however you say it, wasn't behind this movie, I thought it would be bad. But the first half was pretty boring, but the last 20 minutes, the action was great. There's a bit where he just casually, Benicio del Toro's character just throws a grenade in the car next to him really casually, and it was had good comedic timing. I really liked Benicio in this. Is that how you say it? Benicio? I don't know, but he was good in this. Number 65 is Overlord. I was quite disappointed by this movie. I thought this would be really good. It ranged from great to bad too many times, from scene to scene. The bit where we first see a transformation into these like monster things that they're creating, I thought that was quite cool, but then they just ruined it. I won't spoil it, actually, I'll just leave that. The dialogue was pretty cringy. It was one of those war films where, you know, the characters all have banter, and it's just it's shit banter. Yeah, there's not much else I can say really. The characters weren't really that interesting. It was shot pretty poorly. Like, it didn't feel like a gritty war film, which is what I was hoping it to be, because I love war films, but I don't know. This one, it had potential, but it lost it. Okay, at number 64 is Happy as Lazaro. I know that a lot of people love this, so this is kind of the only one where I didn't really get it. I respect the film. I like the idea of a character who kind of just blindly follows people and does as everyone says, but it was a very ugly looking movie. The cinematography was pretty bad, and it was very weird and out there. Some people might like it. I can see why people like this movie. I did like the character, and I like the actor who played him. I hope to see him in more films, but aside from that, I don't know. I'd recommend people watch it just to kind of see what other people see, I guess, because you might like it, but I didn't really. Number 63 is Solo: A Star Wars Story. This movie was exactly what I expected it to be. It was just average. I think it was funny at some times. It made me laugh a couple of times maybe. But the robot character, female robot character, who's basically meant to represent, like, basically women in the workplace, I guess. But it was so forced. I understand that, like, droids, they don't get treated with as much respect as humans do in the Star Wars universe, so that was it wasn't too forced because it made sense, but you can kind of tell what they were going for, and I don't know, just Disney being the ones to do it didn't really fit well. I was glad, spoilers, I was very glad when that character died. Very, very glad. Probably the worst character in Star Wars since Jar Jar Binks. Nearly on level. A lot of people did like the character, I think, because of the whole metaphor thing. And yeah, I can respect it. It wasn't that forced. It was just annoying to me. Darth Maul's cameo was pretty weird. There was I'm a big fan of, like, the whole Star Wars universe. I've seen all the Clone Wars episodes and Rebels episodes, and obviously I know Darth Maul is alive. Well, spoilers, was alive in the Clone Wars, and then this is set after the Clone Wars, so I don't know what happened in between those two movies, and I don't know what happened after this movie and before Rebels, because he's obviously in control of some gang in this movie, but then in Rebels he's kind of just lost everything and he's just an old man again going after Obi-Wan. So maybe I'm hoping they actually make a film about Darth Maul set after this movie and before Rebels and can kind of connect them, I guess. And then maybe more people will go and watch the shows. Number 62 is Halloween. I was quite excited for this because I like the Halloween franchise. I like slasher movies, are kind of my guilty pleasure. It was probably the best movie aside from the original. The cinematography was pretty good, but the ending was pretty anticlimactic. I feel like they want a sequel, even though, spoilers, they actually killed him off, and unlike all the other Halloween movies, it didn't show him coming back to life at the end, or surviving, or whatever. So, I don't know. Maybe this could be the end, but I think they are getting a sequel, I think. But there were some good moments. There was that long take that everyone's going on about it that was good, and I liked Michael Myers. He just has that presence, and the man who played him was great. Number 61, a lot of people were probably going to think this is way too high up, but Bird Box. The only reason this is that high up is because I just had fun making fun of it, really. I was watching it with my family, and me and my brother just took the piss out of a lot of what happened in it. I thought the first half was ironically funny, with, like, all the characters, like, just the stuff they were saying to each other was so, unreal. It didn't feel like people actually talking to each other. It just felt like a script. But it was funny. John Malkovich was really bad in this movie. The line where he says, making the end of the world great again, was so forced. I'm going to say some good things about this movie, because there were a couple of good things. I liked Sarah Paulson's acting when, spoilers, just before she died, when she kind of saw this creature or whatever it was. It didn't actually explain what it was, but when she saw the creature and she was like saying, "What the fuck is that?" it felt genuine, and it actually made you want to see what she was seeing. And I liked the idea of the mentally insane people being able to, you know, look at this creature or whatever it was and resist death, I guess. But they just made it really shit. Like, all the mentally insane people were just really cliche. But I like the idea of it. Before they ruined it, I kind of had good theories in my head. Like, I thought maybe they'd had a third eye and that they were going to make it like the mentally insane people weren't actually insane and that we were the insane people all along. But no, it was just, it was just shit. Number 60 is Creed 2. This movie there was nothing bad about it. There was nothing good. No, there was, okay, the acting was quite good. The last fight was pretty good. But everything else, it didn't do anything new or different. I don't think the first Creed's that good either. Then neither of them are as good as like the old Rocky movies, because they just have that charm to them. Number 59 is Mary Poppins Returns. This I saw in the cinemas. There was a lot of good things about it and then a lot of bad things. The acting I thought was pretty crap, especially from the kids. Emily Blunt was okay in it. She was fine. I liked some of the set pieces. They were quite creative. There was the room that was kind of topsy-turvy and would turn upside down. I thought that was quite good. And the 2D animated sequence, that was really well done. Like, I really enjoyed that whole sequence, and it went on for like maybe 15 minutes, and I wished there was more of that because that was really good. But yeah, the songs were pretty forgettable. There was nothing iconic like from the original one, which I do really love. Okay, number 58 is You Were Never Really Here. This is another movie that a lot of people loved. I'm just going to say that I think this would have been better as a short film, because I liked the idea it dealt with a hitman dealing with PTSD and everything, but it was very slow at some points and it got a bit repetitive, and I think it would have been a lot better as like a half-hour film. But it was really well shot and well directed, and the acting, Joaquin Phoenix is great as always. But I don't know, just the plot was kind of uninteresting. It was just the idea behind it that was good. Number 57, this is the last of the 5 out of 10s, so this movie was nearly good. I came out of it just like, okay. And this is A Quiet Place, number 57. I like the premise, obviously. I think that's the reason everyone went to watch it. But it didn't do much with it. Obviously there's a lot of plot holes in this movie, and usually plot holes don't bother me too much, but they were just really in your face. Like, Your Movie Sucks made a video on it, and he points out all of it. It's a good video, you should go watch that instead. A lot of things happen just to move the plot along. I liked the performances. I liked, what's his name, John Krasinski. I liked him in this. The ending was awful, like really bad. I don't know how they could have really ended this movie, but surely they could have done it in a better way than they did. I won't spoil it, because I've spoiled a lot of films, and I know a lot of people like this one, and maybe a lot of people want to see it, so yeah, it's not a bad movie, but it's not a good movie. Okay, we're now in the 6 out of 10s, and just scraping that is number 56, Mission Impossible Fallout. I was quite disappointed with this film, because I heard a lot of great things, and I really like the Mission Impossible franchise, aside from the second one, and this was probably my second least favourite. The stunts were obviously great, the action was great, but that's all it's got really. The plot wasn't very good. I'm not really too interested in the characters. The comedy wasn't funny. Simon Pegg wasn't funny in this, and I usually really like Simon Pegg. Yeah, there's not much to say about it. Just, if you really want to see it for the action, if you like the other Mission Impossible movies, you'll probably like this, and the action's great. Just go and see it for the stunts, and just kind of marvel at Tom Cruise trying to kill himself. Alright, number 55. I know people are going to say this is way too high, but Ready Player One. I I know this movie is really, really bad in terms of like plot and how it doesn't make any sense, but it's just fun. It's just a fun movie. It's really, really stupid. I actually quite liked some of the special effects. Like, I know they didn't look realistic, but it was in a video game, so it made sense in the context. But I enjoyed it. I just had fun watching it. I liked the movie references. I know I know a lot of people like it just because of that, but I liked the Shining scene. I don't know, it was just a fun movie. I can't say anything else. It was a fun, stupid movie. Number 54 is Cold War. This movie looked like, just from looking at the poster, I thought it would be like a 3-hour long, boring movie. But it was actually an hour and 29 minutes or something like that. And that was the worst part about it, how short it was, because they didn't really develop everything enough. This had potential to be great. I like the idea of kind of two lovers that just kind of are in love, but they can't. It's just bad timing because of the Cold War going on. The singing scenes were really well done. For some reason, I couldn't quite pinpoint why, but they kind of gave me goosebumps whenever she'd sing to the audience. I don't know why. The cinematography was great as well. It was very well shot. Okay, number 53 is another black and white movie by Ralph Seppi Jr. It's called Lover. This shouldn't really count because it's actually a straight to DVD movie, but I just wanted to put it on the list. I wanted to give Ralph a bit of credit. Ralph Seppi Jr. is Ralph the Movie Maker. He is probably my favourite YouTuber on the platform, and he starred in this as well as directed it, and he was good in this. I have seen all of his other short films. This wasn't as good as King Candy, but it was close, and I thought, because he stars in a lot of his films, I always kind of see him, he's never bad in them, but I just still see him as that YouTuber, that funny YouTuber that I watch. But in this movie, he was actually, I saw him 90% of the time as the character he was playing, rather than just Ralph. This is how you do a low budget movie compared to Downriver, which was at 119. This is how you do it. I think this actually had a lower budget, and he made it when he was 18, so this was higher originally. I think maybe like 5 to 10 spaces higher on the list, but I had to knock it down because I realised I was giving it too much credit just because of how low budget it was. I liked both of the lead actors. Obviously I mentioned Ralph, but I liked the woman in it, which what is her name? Victoria Bardouin. I butchered that name as well. The cinematography was really good, surprisingly. The editing, a lot of people have pointed out that the editing and sound editing weren't very good. But this just kind of goes to show that he will make great movies in the future, because there was a lot of potential, and he made it when he was 18 with such a low budget. And his channel's growing, so he'll get more of like a platform, and I don't know, maybe he'll get more of a budget next time. I like the first and third act, but the second one felt a bit messy compared to the others. But yeah, I liked it. It was good. Number 52 is Tag. I'm sorry that a bro comedy beat Ralph's film that he's been working on for years. It was actually funny. I liked the idea of it. There was no like fart or poop jokes. It was just a fine, harmless comedy movie. I don't really like Ed Helms that much, but he was quite funny in this. It's just harmless fun, and it's a good idea. Just people. It was based on a true story, I think. Just people playing tag for years from their childhood till they were adults. Number 51 is First Reformed. I should have really watched this again before I made this list, because I don't know, I didn't fully get it. I still liked it, but I thought it was slow, and I really liked the ending. The last 5-10 minutes were great, and some scenes were so well directed. Like the I won't spoil it. I'll try and vaguely describe it, but it was like a woman singing choir while Ethan Hawke's character was like okay, people who've seen it know the ending. I just loved that scene. It was really well directed. The acting was great. Amanda Seyfried, I don't know. She was great. Ethan Hawke should have been nominated for Best Actor, I think. Yeah, I've just put this, I don't know. I've put this so low just because it was slow. I'll watch it again. Okay, we're in the top 50 now. And number 50 is Widows. Some of the shots were very beautiful. The acting was great. But I thought the script was just very, not weak, but just unoriginal. It was just a heist film that was just really well directed, basically. I liked a lot of the actors in it. Viola Davis was great, especially at the end. Yeah. I need to see more of Steve McQueen's movies, because I've heard this is actually his worst one. I've seen 12 Years a Slave, but Hunger and, what's the other one? Shame. I need to watch those. Okay, number 49 is Vice. There was some I actually preferred this to The Big Short. I didn't really like The Big Short that much. This was more fun and didn't take itself as serious. Well, Big Short didn't take itself too seriously, but I don't know, it was just boring at times. There was a few pacing issues in this film. I don't know, it had the pacing of a documentary. I don't know if they were going for that, but the acting was great. Christian Bale definitely deserves Best Picture, Best Actor. I don't think this deserves Best Picture. I was surprised when I saw it nominated, because it doesn't seem like the kind of film the Oscars would go for. But yeah, I just thought, and I like the about halfway through, spoilers, they kind of acted as like it was going to be a happy ending. Obviously no one thought it was going to end, but they rolled the credits, and then they kind of was like, psych. And it's kind of like what YouTubers do when they're you know, that old joke where they're like, oh, video's done, and then they play their outro halfway through, and then they're like, then they just continue the video. But I've never seen it done in a film before, so that's pretty weird. Number 48 is The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. This is quite hard to rank an anthology movie, because, in my opinion, every storyline in this movie got worse. None of them were bad. I thought the first one was great. Really funny. I kind of hope that that song, When an Angel Gets His Wings, whatever it's called. No, When a Cowboy Gets His Wings, sorry. I hope that wins, but I don't think it will. I'm sure Shallow will. I liked how the stories felt Shakespearean at times, even though they were still comedic. Cinematography went from like really good to kind of felt like a TV movie, especially in the last story was my least favourite, obviously, and it was quite a lot worse than the others, because they were all like really cinematic, and then the last one was just people talking in a carriage, and I don't know, it just felt off compared to the others. The acting was all great though, and I still liked it. The fact number 48 is still a good position on this list, so number 47 is The Sisters Brothers, another Western. The biggest problem with this was the pacing, I think. I thought it was very funny. I didn't expect it. I know John C. Reilly, he's pretty much never been in anything that isn't remote, like slightly funny. But I thought this would be a serious film when I saw the trailer for it. But there's one scene which is really funny because it's just so out of the blue. I'm going to spoil it because it's such a good scene. They, the two sisters brothers, meet with these two people that were trying to kill them originally, played by Jake Gyllenhaal and the the villain from Venom. I can't remember his name. What's his name? Riz Ahmed. And then they work together to get this gold that's at the bottom of this lake, and they have to pour this like very corrosive, acidic thing, whatever it is, into the lake to make sure that the gold comes up. And someone has to go in and collect the gold while like the acid's in it, so it's quite dangerous. And Joaquin Phoenix, who's great, and all of the acting's great in this movie. Joaquin Phoenix's character gets really greedy and like impatient, so he starts pouring loads into it, and then he starts burning Jake Gyllenhaal and Riz Ahmed, who are in the thing, and he's pouring it so fast that he like drops it and it goes on his arm, and then they're all just like burning to death. Yeah, I really liked, that was my favourite scene of the film. That was one of my favourite scenes from the year. But I don't know, the rest of the film wasn't as good as that scene. But it was still good. It was still good. Number 46 is Incredibles 2. This was a lot better than I thought it would be. I thought this would be quite shit, to be fair. There was some very funny moments. I did like the scenes with Jack in it. The animation's always good, obviously. The voice acting was good. But a lot of people talking about the villain and how bad the villain was, and I agree. That brought the film down quite a lot. I was disappointed that we waited, like, was it 14 years to see, okay, I'm going to spoil it again, to see the Underminer get taken down, and then he just ended up getting away, and we never saw him again. Okay, number 45 is Shoplifters. This was quite disappointing. I thought this would be really good, but it was good, and I'm not saying it was bad, but the premise was really interesting, just the idea of, like, a shoplifting family taking on someone and then raising them to shoplift as well. It was quite slow. The cinematography wasn't all that amazing. It was a very competent movie. I liked the performances from what I saw, as well as from the kids, from what I could tell, considering they're obviously foreign. The ending was a bit confusing. I don't know, a lot of it was implied, so it was kind of meant to be confusing, because it turned out, spoilers, that the family wasn't actually all a family. They were kind of just from different families coming together. I was quite confused by it, but yeah, I still liked it. Number 44 is Mandy. Nicolas Cage is fantastic in this movie. It's just a Nicolas Cage movie. Like, you can't have anyone else in this film. It's just him going on a revenge spree to kill the people that killed his wife Mandy. And I don't know if I can't remember if it was his wife or his girlfriend, I can't remember. But I feel like the title of the film, Mandy, is like a play on words to try and make it feel like, because it's kind of like a drug trip, the whole film. So I don't know if Mandy's like a double meaning, because the drug Mandy and his wife, I don't know. Some people might think this film's too wacky, but I liked it, and the cinematography is great. Number 43 is The Miseducation of Cameron Post. This was a very simple movie. Not that that's a bad thing, but it was just like a woman, I think it was set in the 90s, a girl played by Chloe Moretz was found out by her parents that she was gay, so she was sent to a gay conversion therapy camp, or whatever they call them. And I liked all the chemistry between all of the actors. I liked the performances. It had good cinematography. The only reason that it wasn't higher is because it just didn't do anything special, really. It was just kind of simple and good. It's a very easy watching movie. Okay, we're now in the 7 out of 10s. So number 42 is First Man. This was better than I thought it would be, based on the trailer. I thought the trailer looked a bit average, but I love Damien Chazelle's films. I loved Whiplash's in my top 5 films of all time, and La La Land was fantastic. But this was nowhere near on the level of those two movies. The acting was great. Ryan Gosling was fantastic. Claire Foy was great. The directing was obviously good. I really liked the scene when he just first gets into space and we see the shot from the window, and it kind of shows like the moon from his window. I can't remember exactly, and it's hard to describe stuff like that, but I don't know, whoever's seen it will get what I mean. There was just really beautiful moments like that. Number 41 is Private Life. This starred Catherine Hahn, who's that actress that you kind of just see in like every movie. Not every movie, all of those like comedy movies like Adam McKay and Judd Apatow kind of films. She's always in the background of those, but she's starting to get more lead roles now, and I think she's great. I think she deserves to get more lead roles. Paul Giamatti was also great in this movie. I really liked the concept of just a couple really struggling to have a baby. That's literally the whole plot. It felt real a lot of the times, but then other times it felt a bit too sitcom-y. Like there was a scene where spoilers, I think it was their friend's daughter, they'd asked her to basically carry their baby because they couldn't have one, and then they didn't want the parents to know, obviously, because they wouldn't have allowed it, but then she announced it to everyone, and they were like trying to tell her to not say anything, and I don't know, the scene felt a bit too forced and sitcom-y. But aside from that, I thought it was great. Number 40 is Christopher Robin. I know this is very biased because I love Winnie the Pooh. I love the original Winnie the Pooh movie. I think that's great. And this was it's just like a harmless, fun, cute movie. Winnie the Pooh was very cute in this. In the notes I've written, Minions was better though. I don't know why. I don't know what that has to do with anything. Yeah, the movie, it wasn't good in like from an objective point of view, but it was just very cute. It's a good family film. I didn't like Ewan McGregor in this movie, and I usually like Ewan McGregor. I thought he was pretty bad in this. I shouldn't have put this high, but I'm very biased. I'm not biased with a lot of films on this list, but that one I think I was a bit too. Number 39 is Leave No Trace. I really liked Ben Foster in this, and the girl who played his daughter. I'll check her name now. Thomasin McKenzie. Thomasin, I've never heard that name. I like the premise of just a guy who is a hermit, I think that's what you call him, who just wants to live secluded, and he's kind of forced his daughter to as well, but she's fine with it. But all the police think something's weird going on, so they're just kind of on the run, even though they haven't actually done anything illegal. And yeah, I think the performances were great. The only issue really, well, not the only issue, but the girl was meant to be 13, I think, but she just looked a bit too old, and she acted a bit too old. She looked maybe 16, I don't know, and it put me off a little bit, kind of took me out of it a bit. I liked how a lot of it was left unexplained at the end and was kept subtle. Spoilers, we don't actually really get a full reason as to why he lives secluded. Maybe I missed it, because I don't know. If I did, someone can point it out. Number 38 is Blind Spotting. I thought the two lead actors in this were great. They had really good chemistry. Like, they genuinely just felt like best friends. I liked the themes of it, the messages that it sent, a lot better than the the ones in the First Purge. It was very funny at some points. I'm going to check what the main actor's called. David Giggs. He was great in it. There was a couple scenes where he was rapping, but the most important one was at the end, which I won't spoil. And it was just really powerful moments like that. Okay, number 37 is Bohemian Rhapsody. This, I know a lot of people don't like this movie. It's very mixed, but I thought it was enjoyable. I thought the first 20 minutes, half an hour, were kind of shit, but then when he was actually in the band and it showed stuff to do with the band, it got a lot better. It was another very simple thing. It didn't do anything too special, aside from the last act, which I thought was great. Not the last act, just the last 20 minutes when he was at the Live Aid concert. Yeah, I thought that was really good. I thought Rami Malek was obviously great in this movie. He's going to be in so many more films now. But yeah, I can see why people don't like it. It's very cheesy and bland. It's not Best Picture worthy, in my opinion. Number 36 is Caliber. This was a Netflix movie. I really liked, although it's not completely original, I like the premise of it. These two people, basically, they accidentally kill a kid. They shoot him through a deer, I believe, or some kind of animal. And the dad witnesses it, and they don't know what to do. They panic, so they kill the dad. This isn't a spoiler, this is at the beginning of the movie. And they're in this new town, which they've come to just for hunting. So they're just basically trying to hide the fact that they killed these two people. And it doesn't sound original or anything, but it's just the way it's dealt with. It's very realistic. They feel guilt the whole way through. They're never casual about it. And whenever the acting was great from the two lead performances. Whenever people would mention how the father and son had gone missing, you could just see them shit themselves. It was very well shot. It was just a bit slow. I don't know, it could have worked better as a shorter movie. I'm going to check how long it was. 101 minutes, okay, that's not even that long. But I don't know. Maybe it would have been better as a short film, but I still really liked it. Number 35 is Green Book. This is another film with two great lead performances. I think they both deserved to be nominated. I don't think Viggo Mortensen was. I know Mahershala Ali was, but I think they both deserved it. The message of the movie was very obvious, but it was still a good message and it wasn't like forced or anything. I thought the cinematography was a little bland, so it made the movie kind of look uninteresting to me. But it was just the plot and the two main characters, and some scenes were great, like the scene, I guess this is a spoiler, where he gets out the car and he's like, Mahershala Ali is shouting at Viggo Mortensen's character saying that if he's not black enough and he's not white enough. It was a very, very powerful scene. There's just moments like that that make this movie really good, but as a whole there's just bits in between where they're a bit slow and kind of cheesy at some points. Number 34 is Burning. I think this should have been nominated for Best Foreign Language Film. I'm very surprised it wasn't. I think it was shortlisted, but I don't know. I didn't see all of them. I think I missed Capernaum and Never Look Away, but I don't know. I think it should have been nominated over Cold War, but that's I'm going on about the Oscars too much. The acting was great from what I could tell, even though they speak another language. There was some beautiful sequences, like there was a scene where the main female character, I can't remember her name, she was just she was high. They were all getting stoned, the three main characters, and then she just took off her shirt and was just like doing a little dance in front of the sun, and it was just really... Oh, that's actually I've just looked at the poster and I think that's literally what she's doing in the poster. But yeah, there's it was very beautifully shot. It was a very good looking movie, and the story was interesting. It was kind of anticlimactic at the end. I don't know, maybe people will disagree, but I won't get into it. Number 33 is Won't You Be My Neighbour. This is the first documentary on the list. I'm surprised this wasn't nominated. I didn't see any of the documentaries that were nominated, but I saw 3 documentaries, and this one I'm surprised didn't get nominated because a lot of people liked it, and it's very accessible. It's a very wholesome movie, very emotional. I didn't really know anything about Mr. Rogers because he's American and I'm British, and not many people know about him too much over here. Yeah, it took a while to get into, but it's just a very easy watching movie. I actually can't remember whether I mentioned that we were in the 7 out of 10 category. If I didn't, it was back when we were at First Man. So that was the first 7 out of 10. And Miseducation of Cameron Post was the last 6 out of 10. We're still in the 7 out of 10s now, but we're nearly at the end. Number 32 is Apostle. This was very mixed movie. I really liked it, but I can see why people hated it. Gareth Evans directed it, and he is one of my favourite directors. He made Raid and Raid 2, which are 2 of the best movies ever made, and definitely the 2 greatest action movies ever made in my opinion. The film had amazing gore, which if you like that kind of stuff, then you will like the scenes in this. Like the moments of gore in Raid and Raid 2 are just amplified in this. If you're looking for the action scenes of Raid and Raid 2, there's not any of that in here. There's like really short moments, but not much at all. The cinematography was very, very good. But there was some stupid moments and stuff that didn't make sense. But it's more of like an experience movie. And I've written that I'm biased because I suck Gareth Evans' dick. And it's not wrong. Number 31 is Dogman. This is a little bit slow, but aside from that, I expected it, like when I read it was like a revenge movie, I thought it would be like a full-on revenge movie, but it's really not. It's a very interesting premise. It's basically this guy who's a dog groomer. That's the only reason the film's called Dogman. It doesn't really have much else to do with dogs. He has a friend who's like the bully of the town, and he just kind of harasses everyone, and people want him dead in the town, but he's like always sticking up for him, even though he gets bullied himself by the guy. then he ends up having to snitch to him or he'll go to jail, but he decides to go to jail instead. So he's literally he's got everyone against him now because he didn't snitch on the guy. So literally everyone hates him, and it just creates that feeling of like loneliness. The main character was still likeable, even though he makes a lot of stupid decisions, especially like the stuff he does at the end is very like, not funny, but kind of like dark humour, but it's never meant to be intentionally funny. Like, they never force it upon you, they don't have any actual jokes, it's just kind of just a funny situation. I won't spoil it though because it is good. Number 30 is Game Night. This is quite a subjective one. It's not a well-made movie, but it's simply just a funny movie. It made me laugh a lot. There's obviously some cringy jokes, because you get shit jokes in these films all the time. I like the idea of it, obviously, but it's not completely original. I feel like I've seen it in a film before, where they do a game and it gets out of hand and turns out to be real. I feel like that's been done before. But yeah, some of the comedic performances were really good. I really liked, what is his name? Jesse Plemons. He was so funny in this movie. Because I've never seen him in a comedic performance before. The only role I've seen him in really is Breaking Bad, which he's also great in. But he was very funny in this. Rachel McAdams is also really funny. I've never seen her do anything comedic either, really, and she surprised me. Yeah, just a lot of funny people in this movie, a lot of funny moments. That's literally all it was, just funny. The plot's not amazing, it's just a funny movie. Number 29 is Roma. This movie has probably hands down the best cinematography I've ever seen. Like, every shot was amazing, and every moment in the movie was choreographed. Like, not like a fight scene or a dance scene, it was just like the way the camera moved and the way the characters moved with it. I don't know, the scene where like hundreds of extras were like practicing, I don't know, some kind of martial arts, and I don't know, it was just so well done and it looked amazing. There was some moments in the film where I genuinely don't know how they did it. Like, okay, I'm going to spoil it, I'm sorry. There's a scene where the two children were drowning in the sea because the waves just got too much, and the woman, the main female character, she went out to save them, but like, it wasn't CGI. Well, I don't know, maybe it was, but it did not look it. But there was actual big waves, and the children were actually in the water, and they didn't cut at all. They just showed her swimming in to save them from these big waves, and I've no idea how they did it. I don't know if they actually just put these kids into the sea. I don't know, I doubt they did that, because that would be illegal. But it did not look fake. I don't know how they did it. The only reason it's not higher up is because it is slow paced. It's not like an entertaining movie for people who don't like film. So if you can appreciate the art of film, then you will love this movie. But yeah, I thought it was great, but it's not like my favourite. Number 28 is Annihilation. I actually didn't like it as much when I first saw it, but then as time went on, it started to grow on me for some reason. I thought it was directed by the same person who did Ex Machina, which I didn't like as much. I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was as great as everyone said. I really like some of the ideas in this. I loved the ending sequence. All the acting was good, except for, what's her name? The woman in Hateful Eight, who was in this. Jennifer Jason Leigh. I didn't think she was very good in this. But aside from that, everything was pretty good. The character interactions were all pretty real. It's just a good sci-fi movie, and it's got all of the female cast in it, and people aren't really talking about that, which is surprising. Number 27 is Isle of Dogs. This has probably the best animation I've ever seen. The animation is amazing. The actual animation itself, I mean. The directing's great, as always, with Wes Anderson, but he kind of, he has the same style with every film. He doesn't really do anything different. That's the problem with this film, is that it can get repetitive because of his style. Like, some of the jokes are made a couple times, and it's quite predictable. But aside from that, it's pretty much perfect. Okay, it's nearly a perfectly made film, but similar to Roma, it's just not my personal favourite. Number 26 is Hereditary. This movie had amazing cinematography. The performances were all great. I'm really surprised that Toni Collette was not nominated. I know a lot of people are saying the same thing. It's really strange that they didn't nominate her, because she probably had a chance of winning. She was one of the best performers. Obviously Olivia Colman is going to win, but I'd say she was probably the second best. There was one scene which I won't spoil, because it's like, I've never been so like shocked at a movie before. I was just staring with my mouth like open, and I just I've never seen anything like it. I definitely won't spoil that moment, but definitely watch it. It can be slow at times, like I've said that for a lot of films, and the ending is a little bit anticlimactic. I know a lot of people like it. That's the part that's like quite mixed, I think, because it's very on the nose. It's very what's the word? Expositional, and I wasn't a huge fan of it, but the rest of the film's great. Number 25 is Deadpool 2. This is another one that's kind of just subjective. I just enjoyed it. I thought it was better than the first one. I didn't like the first one as much. There was some really funny jokes, but there were also some really shit jokes, as you get in all comedy movies. Performances were pretty good. I know a lot of people hated TJ Miller in this movie. I didn't hate him, but I didn't think he had like a couple good jokes. But just like in the first Deadpool, there's just something missing, and I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's just something you can't do in a film, I guess, because obviously in the comics they do so much with his character. Okay, we're now in the 8 out of 10s, so this is like the brilliant tier. Number 24, we have Love, Simon. This was very poorly directed, and it had quite boring cinematography, but the script was just really good, and it kind of made me ignore everything else. All of the performances were pretty great, except for the actor who played the teacher. He was so annoying. I don't know why he was in this film. He was the character that made it feel like a teen drama rather than like a good film, and I usually hate teen dramas. He was he would like grab, he was all flamboyant, and he would grab kids' phones out of their hands and say stuff like "no texting in the hall" or whatever. Yeah, he shouldn't have been in the film, and the film genuinely would have been better if they cut him out or just changed his character completely. Yeah, I liked the what's his name? I forget everyone. Josh Duhamel, or however you say it. He was great in this movie. I thought his character was very realistic, especially the scene where, spoilers, Simon comes out to him, and I won't spoil his reaction because I'll just let people watch that, but it was very realistic, even though obviously I can't really tell because I've never gone through anything like that, but it seemed realistic. Number 23, Bad Times at the El Royale. This was as good as I thought it would be. It looked very Tarantino-ish, and it wasn't as good as a lot of his films, obviously. It was directed by the guy who did Cabin in the Woods, Drew Goddard. I thought this was better than Cabin in the Woods. It started off slow, but it got better and better as it went along. It was a very crazy movie. There was moments where it was emotional, like things happened out of the blue a lot. Like towards the end, there was a character, I won't spoil it, but I'll check the actor's name. The character played by, is it Lewis Pullman? Lewis Pullman, yeah, his character. There was like a twist with him, and it just came out of nowhere, and it was so shocking, but it was really good. All the performances were great. I'm surprised no one was nominated for Best Actor or Best Supporting Actor, but it kind of isn't one of those films, I guess. Number 22 is Sorry to Bother You. This was a very interesting movie. All the characters were interesting. It was very unique and quirky kind of movie. It was fast paced, so it never really got boring. I liked a lot of the ideas in it because it was kind of in an alternate universe where they hadn't really changed much. It was just kind of, to fit the plot more. a lot of people didn't like the stuff with the spoilers, with the ball people, the horse people, whatever they were, because it was a bit wacky, but I liked it. It kind of fit with the tone of the movie, and I liked a lot of the kind of metaphors, like when he went on that show, what was it they did? They just kind of throw shit at you, and he goes on there just so he can like get his message out there, but he has no other platform to do it, so he goes on this show where they just like cover you in shit or something. Oh, I can't remember, but people who've seen the film will know what I'm talking about. All the acting was good as well. Number 21 is American Animals. This was just a fun movie. It was very funny. I know a lot of people didn't like the documentary style, but I did. It was kind of the real people that it was based on were talking, and then it would show the actors playing the younger version of themselves doing it. And it was another heist movie. We have another heist movie coming up on the list, actually. Both done by stupid people who don't know what they're doing. They don't plan it properly, and the bit when they actually perform the heist is so funny. I won't spoil it, but it's just a bunch of stupid kids trying to steal this book, and it just goes really wrong. But yeah, I'll let people watch it for themselves. All the performances were great as well. Okay, we're in the top 20 now, so we're in the proper good stuff. At number 20, we have Suspiria. I forgot to mention that Dakota Johnson was in Bad Times at the El Royale, and she's also in this, so she's doing a lot better than Jamie Dornan is, as I mentioned earlier. All the acting was great in this. The cinematography was amazing. The visuals ranged a lot from amazing to pretty bad towards the end, but I think that was done on purpose. The script was a bit all over the place at some points, but aside from that, pretty much everything was perfect about it. Some people might think it's a bit too wacky though. Number 19 is Museo, or Museo, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. This is another film about a couple of stupid young people, based on a true story, performing a heist. The performances were amazing, again from what I could tell, considering they were speaking another language. The cinematography was great, like some of the best from this year, I think, and it wasn't nominated, which is weird. It was a YouTube Red movie, so I don't know, maybe that's, or whatever you call it, YouTube Originals, so maybe that's the reason behind it. The dialogue was great, it all felt very real. And again, the only problem with the film that I've written down is that it was a little slow at times, but that's not really, you can't really say that's an issue. Number 18 is Black Klansman. This was a little bit cheesy. I know that's why a lot of people didn't like it. But I thought the story was great. The acting was great. Adam Driver, I don't know if he deserved supporting actor, or was it? No, he wouldn't be counted as a lead, would he? He definitely got supporting actor, I'm sure. A couple of pacing issues, but it was just a very entertaining movie. I liked a lot of the characters and the dialogue. Yeah, this deserved Best Picture, I think, maybe. I don't know, this is one of the better ones that was nominated. Number 17 is The Favourite. This was another one nominated for Best Picture, which is well deserved. And the fact, I love Yorgos Lanthimos, I think that's how you pronounce it, and this is my least favourite out of his movies, so the fact that my least favourite still got an 8 out of 10 from me. All the performances were amazing. Emma Stone, Rachel Weisz, Olivia Colman, even Nicholas Hoult, I think that's how you say it, they were all great. I think they all deserved to be nominated, to be fair. The cinematography was amazing. The dialogue was very funny. Like he has this weird dialogue where he kind of makes the characters speak as if they're a bit like mentally challenged, or as if they're like kids. But in this movie, Queen Anne, it kind of fit with her character because she was a little bit mentally challenged. I thought the ending was a bit rushed. That's probably my only problem with it, really. I don't have many problems with any of the films in the top 20, to be honest. They're all really good. Number 16 is Beautiful Boy. This movie felt very real. It just felt like a documentary. Felt like we were watching a father try to get his son to stop doing drugs, basically. The performances from Timothée Chalamet is great as always. He's been in so many good things these past couple of years. Steve Carell was really good in this as well, because everything I've seen him in, he kind of always has a little bit of a comedic side to him. He always goes for a role, like in Vice. He was in Vice and The Big Short. Those are meant to be his more serious roles, but he was still kind of funny in those. But in this, he was just a dad. He was just a normal dad, nothing funny about him. And I guess my only problem with the film is that the dad seemed like such a perfect character. Like, he would never, like, say anything bad. And I don't know, I think the real dad was, like, working on the film in a way. Not like he wasn't actually on set or anything, probably, but I don't know, he had some input. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, like he was a bit biased towards himself. But yeah, it was very emotional, it was very impactful. And the drug scenes didn't try and make themselves feel too, like, intimidating, like, oh, he's doing drugs. They just felt like it actually showed the characters having fun while on them and actually enjoying it. Number 15 is Upgrade. This was what I was talking about earlier. This is the best Venom movie of the year. Logan Marshall Green did better than Tom Hardy. He looks pretty much exactly like Tom Hardy. So maybe one day he'll get to the level where people think he's Tom Hardy, and then he'll just get loads more roles and Tom Hardy won't. He was great in it. The action scenes were really, really good. There just wasn't enough of them. And I don't know, I think it had a lot of potential. I know it's number 15 on the list and that's high up, but it still could have been better, because the action scenes just kind of had too much of a routine to them. It would go action scene, then, because he was going on revenge for people that killed his wife, that's not a spoiler, it happens right at the beginning, and he goes after one, then he talks and figures out where the next one is, and he goes after them, talks, figures out where the other one is, goes after them. It's just kind of very routine. It's like Assassin's Creed in a way, but I don't know, it didn't bring it down enough for me. Number 14 is Abducted in Plain Sight. This is another documentary, the second of the 3 on this list. This isn't like a well-made documentary. I just found the actual story so interesting. It's like unbelievable, the stuff that happens in this documentary. I know a lot of people, you've probably heard of it now because a lot of people tweet about it. But I was shocked. I can't believe this wasn't like all over the news. I can't believe more people didn't talk about this before the documentary. I feel like I'm only really going to talk about the actual story because the actual making of the documentary wasn't that interesting. It's just interviews with the parents, then recreation scenes. It was nothing special. But I feel like there's something unexplained with the parents. I'm not going to spoil the plot at all because it's insane, and if you don't know about it, then you don't want to know about it until you actually watch the documentary. But there's definitely something unexplained with the parents who are actually interviewed in the documentary, and I don't know, there's something off about them. Number 13 is If Beale Street Could Talk. I'm really surprised this didn't get nominated for Best Picture, and Black Panther did, because I understand that Black Panther was like important for the black community, and it had a lot of, pretty much an all-black cast, but so did this film, and this film was miles better, and yet it didn't get nominated. It's really strange. It's very realistic and raw, the movie. All the interactions between every character is realistic. All the dialogue, it's the same director as Moonlight, and I actually prefer this movie to Moonlight. I think Moonlight's great, but this movie was better. The directing was beautiful. It looked beautiful, the whole film. I really liked the dialogue. I really liked all the performances in it. Yeah, just go watch it. I'd probably recommend pretty much anything from my top 50. No, maybe I'll say my real recommendations come from the top 30. I'll say from like Game Night onwards, but anything before that, anything with a 6 out of 10, I'd recommend. 6 and 10 or more. And I'd also probably recommend You Were Never Really Here and Happy as Lazaro, since a lot of other people seem to like those. Okay, sorry, I'll get back to the list. Number 12 is Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. There was a lot of hype around this film, and I did not expect it to be as good as the hype, but it was. It was fantastic. The animation looked amazing, better than it did in the trailer, I thought. Because I kind of thought the low frame rate would get a bit annoying at points, but it never did. The soundtrack was great. I know a lot of people had some problems with that, but it never bugged me enough. It was really funny. There were some cheesy jokes because it's like targeted to kids, obviously, but it's just really good. So definitely watch it, especially if you like Spider-Man. Number 11 is Thunder Road. This, I don't think many people saw this movie, and it was really, really good. I saw the trailer for it, I can't remember where, and I thought the trailer looked really good, so I watched it and it was really good. It's like, I thought it was a comedy based on the poster, but it wasn't marketed as a comedy, it's more of like a dramedy. And it's literally about a loser guy who, he has an ex-wife and a kid, and then his mum dies, and he's just distraught and depressed, and it's just him fucking up for the whole movie. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's realistic like his character, because he's very much an archetype, but Jim Cummings' performance was amazing. I've never seen him in anything else before, but I hope to see him in a lot. I will genuinely check out the next thing he does, because he directed, wrote and acted in it. It was very emotional at times. Despite the character being a bit of an over-exaggeration, the situations he was put in, he dealt with them realistically, and I don't know, I think a lot more people should watch this movie, and I hope to see Jim Cummings more in the future. Right, the top 10. Number 10 is Three Identical Strangers. This is the last of the documentaries on my list. This should have been nominated, definitely, for Best Documentary. I don't know, maybe all 5 of them are amazing, because I never saw any of them, but the premise is amazing. I can't believe I didn't hear about this as well. I know this one was a bit more widespread, the story behind it. I won't spoil it, I think you should just watch the documentary for yourself. I kind of wish more questions were answered, but obviously they couldn't, because the actual people involved don't know the answers. It was just told in such a wonderful way, and it was paced very well. The way they revealed everything was great. Just go watch it. I won't spoil any of the documentaries, because I don't know. Number 9 is 8th Grade. Bo Burnham is now talented at like a million different things. This is his first movie, and it was amazing. The only issue with it was that the cinematography wasn't anything amazing. It was just the writing and all the acting was great, and the directing, obviously. It genuinely just felt like we were watching a kid in 8th grade. I don't know how old is that in England? Like 13? So year 8 or year 9? But yeah, it genuinely felt like we were watching a kid, and there was all those cringy jokes in there, but it fit because it was supposed to be cringy because it's kids making them. Like, what was that? Some kid kept shouting out LeBron James, which was a meme, and that's what happened, because when I was that age, I think people were saying like D's nuts all the time, and it wasn't funny at all, and it wasn't funny in the movie, but that's what made it funny, because it was realistic. Elsie Fisher, she's one of the best child performances I've ever seen in this film. In the notes I've written, looking forward to the sequel 9th grade. That's not even funny. Okay, number 8 is Searching. This, in the notes I've written, stole the idea from Unfriended. Unfriended was better, not as good as Unfriended. It did actually take the idea from Unfriended, but it just did it good. It was the good version of Unfriended. It was a very emotional movie. The first 10 minutes are very emotional. It was so realistic. Like, the technology in the film, everything he does, it's not You know, in films when you see someone type into Google and they add like, they use capital letters and punctuation in the search bar, and it's so fucking shit. But in this, everything was realistic. That's all I could say. It's just a realistic movie, and there's twists and turns that are shocking. They're not as realistic. The actual plot isn't too realistic, but it's just the way the film's made is amazing. And John Cho was great as well. He just felt like a dad, which is what he was meant to. Number 7, people are going to probably hate me for putting this too high up, but Avengers Infinity War, this, I just love the MCU as a whole. I just love how much of a milestone it is. They've started off with just Iron Man, and now they've made a film with like 30 different main characters, all superheroes, all with different powers, and the special effects were amazing. Like, the only times where they didn't look very real was when you just see Iron Man standing in his suit as he's lowered the helmet. His head looks a bit weird, same with Spider-Man. It was better. I've watched it 3 times, twice in cinemas and once at home, and it's definitely better in cinema. Some of the action, well, one action scene wasn't very good. The bit where Vision and Scarlet Witch get ambushed by 2 of the 4 horsemen, or whatever he calls them. It was too dark and you couldn't really see what was going on. But aside from that, the action I thought was really good. Especially the bit on Titan where Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Iron Man, Nebula are all fighting Thanos. That bit was so well choreographed, and they managed to fit in everyone's powers so well. I don't know how they did it. Like, it's genuinely a well-made movie. There was some bad dialogue, obviously, but it's just such a milestone, this movie. And the ending was such a great thing to like experience with an audience, just to hear like the gasps and everything, and then it would just go silent. It's just, you just have to watch it in cinemas, I think. If you're not a fan of the other movies, you're not gonna like this, probably. Maybe you'll like it, but you won't love it. Okay, number 6 is The Night Comes For Us. This, all I've wrote in the notes is punch, punch, kick, kick, and that's it. This was just an amazing action movie. I love martial arts movies, and it also stars Iko Uwais, who was in one of the worst movies of the year as well. It also had Joe Taslim, who was in the first Raid. He played Xhaka. Who else is in it? There was someone else from Raid. Zach Lee, he was in the Raid 2. Oh, and a Hammer Girl was in this movie, and she was fantastic. In the Raid 2, before it went into production, she hadn't had any training, so they trained her specifically for that film in martial arts, and you could kind of see it at some points. Like, the camera was a little more shaky when it came to her, but in this film she has improved so much. The scenes with her were some of the best. The fight scene at the end, which she has with one of the female assassins, is amazing. And the fight scene between, I won't spoil it actually, but the final fight scene was fantastic. Like, this is directed by Timo Tchajanto, butchered his name as well, Tchajanto. He directed Headshot, which came out 2016, and that was an okay movie. The action was good, but it was missing a lot. Like, the action scenes were done in very boring places, like in just a forest. But in this film, this is his second film, and it's improved so much. Like, all the action scenes are in interesting places. They use weapons that they find in the room. My only issue with it, okay, the plot's not amazing. It's just Joe Taslim's character realises that he's in a shitty gang, so he tries to get out of the gang because he's forced to kill a kid. So he saves the kid, leaves the gang, and then the gang comes after him, so he has to kill the gang. The only issue I had, aside from the plot not being anything too special, was some of the sound editing was a bit off. Like, in the Raid and Raid 2, the sound editing, or sound design, or whatever you call it, was probably the most like important part of the fight scenes, because every kick felt real. But in this, there was times where like someone would get punched and there'd be no noise at all. Obviously there was a lot of kicks and punches thrown, so it's not too noticeable, but I don't know, that's the only real issue I had with the movie. No, actually, this was more of like a lost in translation kind of situation because it's obviously a foreign movie. But when Eco spoke in English in one of the scenes, it was very bad. Which is weird because he wasn't that bad in Mile 22 when he spoke English. But I don't know, maybe he wasn't directed well enough because obviously it was a foreign director who also probably doesn't know how to speak English. But if you can just ignore that, it's fine. The top 5. Number 5 is mid-90s. This movie, it doesn't really have a plot, and I love those kind of movies where it's just like a character piece. And I've never seen one so good that's about a kid, because a kid being the centre of the film, everything being about him, usually turns out shit because the kid actor isn't good. But he was amazing in this movie. He was also in Killing of a Sacred Deer. His name's Sonny Suljic. The scene where he is talking, he shouts at his mum, is really good. Like, it might even be the best performance I've seen from a child, except for Jacob Tremblay in Room, not The Room, the one that came out a couple years ago. The whole film felt real. All the interactions between the main characters, who aren't even actors, a lot of them, they were just skateboarders that Jonah Hill found. Oh, and Jonah Hill fucking directed this movie. He, first time director, he did an amazing job. The cinematography was great in this as well. It felt quite raw, and I really liked at the end when it showed the kid who's like making a movie in the movie. I know that's a bit cheesy, but the actual movie they show at the end looks like a 90s movie. This film just looks like a movie made in the 90s. And it felt nostalgic for me, despite the fact that I lived in the 90s for 1 year of my life. So, yeah. Number 4 is The House That Jack Built. This movie is fucked up. I was never once bored throughout the whole thing. I want to watch it again, just to learn more about it, because there's some bits I missed or didn't understand properly. Jack Dillon was fantastic in this. He should have been nominated for Best Actor, but I can see why this isn't an Oscar kind of film. It's Lars von Trier, if you didn't know. He just makes fucked up movies, but they're usually great, and this one is fantastic. This is the best I've seen from him. I know a lot of people didn't like it because it was quite pretentious, but I don't mind that. I don't know, he's kind of mocking himself a little bit in the movie. He's kind of calling himself pretentious through the movie. It's about a killer, a serial killer with OCD, who's talking to a priest, confessing all of his kills that he's done throughout the years. And some of the kills are so creative and fucked up and funny as well. This movie is so funny. There's one... Okay, I'm not going to spoil any of it, actually. But obviously he has OCD. Okay, I'll spoil one bit. He has OCD, so he keeps wanting to... after he's murdered someone, he keeps wanting to check back. Because he thinks he hasn't cleaned up all the blood. And he leaves the house, gets in the car, and then he just pictures there being blood behind like a painting or something. So he runs back in, removes the painting, and sees there's no blood there. And then he goes back in and imagines more blood under the sofa or something. So he runs back in, looks under the sofa, and there's no blood. And it's just like weird stuff like that. And it's crazy, like, it's part of the joke, but how he never gets caught throughout the whole film, because he's quite stupid. Yeah, I'd recommend this to pretty much everyone, unless you're a bit squeamish, because it is very fucked up. Yeah. Top 3. Number 3 is A Star Is Born. This, I know a lot of people are going to criticise me for putting it that high, but I just loved it. It was a simple movie, it was an easy watch, but I loved pretty much everything about it. I did forget to mention that since Avengers Infinity War we've been in the 9 out of 10s, and we're still in the 9 out of 10s, so far nothing's got a 10. Searching was the last 8 out of 10, and now we're in the top 3. Star Is Born's got a 9 out of 10. I thought the cinematography was great in this movie. There was a couple of editing issues which I noticed, like weird cuts. In the notes I've written that Venom was better. Oh, because it came out the same weekend, and for some reason all like the Venom fans or Marvel fans were saying like, oh, everyone should go watch Venom instead of that shitty Lady Gaga movie. I don't know why. I don't know why that was a thing. I can't remember. But yeah, this was the most surprising movie for me in years, because I saw the trailer and I thought it just looked really average. But all the acting was great. Lady Gaga was... I don't know if she was best actress worthy, but she was great. Bradley Cooper was great. And he was a great director. Like, he didn't do anything like special, but I don't know, for a first time director, same as Jonah Hill, they were both amazing. I was really surprised. Yeah, the singing scenes were very emotional, just like Cold War. I don't know why singing scenes get to me. It's a very, very sad movie. Like, I've never seen so many people come out the cinema crying, including me. But yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone will like this movie. Not everyone will love it, but it's a very easy watching movie. I don't think you can hate this movie. It's a lot better than all the originals. I've seen all 4 of them. Yeah, there's 4. 30s, 50s, 70s, and now this one. And this was by far the best one. So I'd highly recommend it. Number 2 is The Guilty. This, I'm very surprised, was not nominated for Best Foreign Picture. I'm really surprised. I think maybe because it's like all set in one room, and it's kind of like, what do they call them, bottle films? I don't know, maybe because it wasn't so, crazy, and like they didn't do loads of crazy stuff with the filmmaking, but it was just the story and the writing that was amazing, and the lead acting. The lead actor was great. It was all following him. He was like a dispatch caller, whatever they call them, and he had to save a woman from getting kidnapped, and it was all set from his perspective. So he was trying to talk her through it, talk to other people to try and save her, and there was so many twists and turns, and it was so unpredictable, the stuff that happened in it. I won't spoil a thing. The cinematography was still good, despite how small scale it was. I really think it should have been nominated for Best Foreign Picture, and I really think that he should have been nominated for Best Actor. Okay, number 1, and it is the only 10 out of 10 of the year. Usually the number 1 spots for each year are quite obvious, and as soon as I watched this, it was actually one of the last movies I watched from the year, and as soon as I watched it, I was just like, this is number 1, this is a 10 out of 10, it's one of the best films I've ever seen, and that is Climax. I didn't write anything in the notes except for this movie was fucking wild. Again, if you're squeamish, you probably won't like this movie. And if you want a plot, you might not like this movie either. It's just an experience movie. That's literally it. It's meant to make you feel like you're high on drugs and that you're at a party. Because basically, in the film, it's a bunch of dancers and they drink sangria after their little performance, and it's laced with LSD, so they all just get fucked off their heads. I don't know how realistic it is to the actual drug, because some of the people do crazy stuff, but obviously they've had a lot of LSD in the film, so I don't know. But all the acting was great, except for the again, a lost in translation kind of situation where there was 2 characters who spoke in English. They weren't as good, but aside from that, all the acting was really good. The cinematography was amazing. Like, there was so many long takes in the film. There's so much I could say. The second it finished, I just wanted to watch it again. I haven't seen it since, but I definitely will. Gaspar Noé was obviously the director. He's one of the best directors in my opinion. I've seen all of his films, and this is the best one, so I don't want to spoil it. A lot of crazy shit happens. The dance choreography is fantastic. The opening scene is all one shot, and it's amazing. Not the opening scene, sorry. There's a bit where they're doing interviews, and then the second scene. But yeah, I won't say anything else. I just think everyone should watch this movie and give it a try. It is an experience. Okay, so that's the end of my list. I hope you enjoyed it if you actually listened to the whole thing. I know it's very long, and I'm a new YouTuber, so I'll be doing more scripted videos in the future. based on films that I really like. I do like video essays on my favourite films. If you can check out my Letterboxd account, I have lots of lists on there. I've literally done a list of the worst to best movies from every year since 1980. So, yeah, thanks for watching, listening, and I'll see you in the next video.